Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopa Karotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjali Pranjalina Natosmi. Hari Om. With the blessings of rishis and the gurus, we are trying to see the bhashyam of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the second pad or the Sadhana pad, and the Niyama and the Yama part of it. While studying Yama Niyama, we find it very hard to digest. Almost we feel that it is too theoretical and too high a standard to achieve. An element of impossibility lurks in the mind. We feel how it is possible for any human being to have such a strict standard of living. On all these fears, doubts are justified. Justified because the one who has wandered away from the center, the greater the distance that he has wandered, more difficult for him to think of the center. To come back to the source is always difficult for the one who has wandered too far. Imagine you come across a cannibal, the person who eats human flesh, and you want to explain to him the importance of vegetarianism. How difficult it will be. Practically, it may sound impossible. And what about that person who is cannibal? He would first of all find this as a very weird idea. I've been enjoying the human flesh. Nobody said anything wrong about it. And here is a gentleman who is talking to me about ahara and shakahara. Niramish ahara is a concept completely unknown to him because of the practices followed by him and his community for a number of years as well as number of births. Similarly, we have been there in this world completely immersed, not only in this birth, but many, many births, having a profound influence on the mind of the vasanas that we have created. And we are continuing to create the new samskaras, emboldening the vasanas, which has completely engulfed us. A thick shell has been formed around our mind. So if anyone comes and knocks on our door, like the great Patanjali Maharaj, and tries to tell us about the Yama and Niyama, we find it very hard to digest. We very poorly try to struggle with the existing circumstances in which we are immersed and trying to reconcile the great truths enunciated by Patanjali Maharaj. And the reconciliation is not very easy. It's difficult. As a result of that difficulty, the doubt comes in the mind that whether it is too theoretical. Can I really do this? Need I do really this? And the mind starts finding the escape route. And that is how the mind first frets away from Yoga Shastra and tries to take recourse to the easier path. One of the most erroneous impression carried by most of the sadhakas is bhakti is that easy path. Remember, no path is easy, and all paths traverse through the same land. In the appearance, the paths may vary. The Bhakti Yoga looks very nice and easy in the first look. The Yoga Shastra looks very tough in the first look. The Karma Yoga appears to be easy on the first look. The Karma Sannyasa or the Sankhya Yoga or the Jnana Yoga appears very tough. But these are all appearances. The fact is, whichever path you may take, the arduousness, the difficulties, the effort required, and the essentials that need to be done are one and the same. The great Saint Tukaram was a bhakta par excellence, but he was an yogi, an expert yogi who used even the yogic practice to samplavan of his body. He was able to dissociate his body into the Panchamahabhutas at his own will. The great stalwart Naneshwar Maharaj all along spoke about the bhakti of Vitthala, Panduranga, but used yoga to abdicate his body through Sanjivana Samadhi. So it is essential for everyone to extricate oneself from the immersion that has happened into the external world. Whichever path you may take, do not expect it to be a very soft path. The Shastras are interspersed with lots of lollipops, but we need to understand that. Even Bhagavan said, Ato va prapsasi swargam, jitva va bhokshase mahim. To Arjuna, Vasudeva said, Arjuna, if you are defeated, you shall have paralaukika sukha of swarga. And if you win, you will be the king of a large kingdom. Now, both of these are not the aim. This is not the end of Purushartha. Because dharma, kama, artha, these are all the means ultimately to get the last Purushartha called Moksham. And that is the reason in most of the Puranas and Shastras, the smaller lollipops are given to motivate the sadhaka. But the ultimate journey, the ultimate reward is only moksha or kaivalya. And that is being the reason in the Charama Shloka of Bhagavad Gita, the 66th Shloka of the 18th Adhyaya, wherein practically it is said that Bhagavad Gita ends there. The shloka is so important that in Sri Sampradaya of Ramanujacharya, it is used for initiating a disciple, Diksha Vidhi, where Bhagavan says, all the 17th Adhyayas is talking about Dharma and what it can give to you, Arjuna. Is talking about Arjuna getting the larger kingdom or the paralokik sukh by following Dharma. But the real goal comes out in 18th Adhyaya in this shloka, where Lord Vasudeva says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Give away everything that you have imbibed, even the good one. If you look at this arduousness of Karma Yoga there, we will realize that arduousness is there everywhere. The education is very difficult for all the students when they enter into the school. No one has any knowledge of any standard, but slowly and steadily, from first standard to the PhD, people progress and become knowledgeable. Similarly, it depends on which standard we are in. This birth could be another standard for you. Another birth could be another standard for you. If you have failed in the standard and been relegated to the lower standard, then that birth will make you, compel you to start again from the lower end. That is why all these yamas and niyamas are to be followed by the adhama adhikari, the inferior one, the one in the lower standards. And don't get exasperated by being called as inferior adhikari or nimn adhikari or manda adhikari. The very fact that you are in the school is a matter of pride. There are people who do not get admitted to the school of yoga at all. We all are lucky to have at least an intellectual browsing of what Patanjali Maharaj's Yoga Shastra is. It is not a small coincidence that we are studying Patanjali Yoga Shastra. We are all definitely punyavan. All of us, those who are hearing and the one who is talking, all of them must have done some sattva karma, some dharma, some punya karma. That is why even at an intellectual level, we are trying to understand it. This is called Shastra Krupa or Paroksha Jnana. This Paroksha Jnana we are taking because the Nimnatar Adhikari has to go through Ashtanga Yoga. The Madhyam Adhikari goes through only 3 things. Tapas, Svadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhana. So if we are in the senior secondary school, Madhyam Adhikari, we will start only with those 3 because Yama and Niyama is already done. If we are Ucha Adhikari, then even Kriya Yoga is not required. We directly get into the Sadhana path, which we studied absolutely in detail in the beginning of discourses of Patanjali Yoga Shastra. What we are doing right now is the inevitability of Yama and Niyama and other Ashtangas such as Asana, Dharana, Dhyana, Pratyahara, etc. because we are Nimnatar inferior Adhikari. In the Yamas and Niyamas that we saw in a Niyama, Yamas are the one which are to be exhibited while interacting in this world with the other Chara and Acharas. The Satya, the Ahimsa, the Asteya, the Brahmacharya and the Aparigraha, these 5 powerful instruments are a must in the armament of the one who is wanting to be a yogi. Remember, yogi is not an ordinary individual. Yogi is the one who has decided and done deliberate efforts to lift his consciousness from the lower consciousness to the higher consciousness. In the higher realm of consciousness, the rules are different. A dirty student, full of dirt all over, is not allowed to be not allowed in the school, because the cleanliness standard, the crisp uniform of the school does not fit into the things as far as this student is concerned. Similarly, as you go up and higher into the higher level of consciousness, because yoga is the process of unfolding the consciousness slowly, steadily, till it gets completely blown. That is why the niyamas that are to be followed, we saw in detail about the first few niyamas. The shaucha, the santosha, the tapa. And then after that comes the svadhyaya. Svadhyaya, in a very crude thing, if you look at Shankaracharya's Manisha Panchakam and other things, Svadhyaya is overstressed there. A common misconception about the word Svadhyaya is reading. Mind well, reading a scripture alone is not Svadhyaya. We all are doing Svadhyaya. We study Bhagavad Gita. If we have time and energy and inclination, we study Brahma Sutra, Upanishada, Itihasa, all the Dwadasha Vidyasthana or Chaturdasha Vidyasthana, depending upon which one we agree with. We study all these scriptures, and the study of scripture is called a Svadhyaya. That is what we have a concept. But ask a question to yourself, why do we study Bhagavad Gita? Now, the reason for this differs again, depending upon the development of consciousness in each individual. We all want to study Bhagavad Gita because we feel that after the age of certain age, it is better to remain devoted to God. So it is always better to be immersed in some study, so we come here. And then again and again, people like Ishwarji emphasizes upon us that every morning for half an hour, that is a very, very crude way of Svadhyaya. You can't be having a Svadhyaya for half an hour in the day. Looking at the quantum of study that is required, when we come in the standards closer to the examination, how many hours we put in to study the books? We study day and night, whether it is engineering or medical or 10 standard or 12 standard or examination of any type, we study day and night. If that is what for a secular study we are doing, then how can we expect that half an hour of reading of Bhagavad Gita in a day can be sufficient for us? Now, does that mean that I should be opening the books all along throughout the 24 hours and neglect my work that I am doing? It is absolutely not so. A Svadhyaya is not Adhyaya or Adhyayana. It is Swa Adhyaya or Swa Adhyayana. Why the word Swa has been put there? It is because it has to be done essentially by the individual himself. It is not something which you can throw. You can keep your car into the garage for the mechanic to look after. You can ask for a food in the restaurant. He will cook and give it to you. But a Svadhyaya is a Swa Adhyaya. There is no one, mind well underlined, no one, not even the Guru. Tapovan Maharaj taught Gurudeva, but Svadhyaya was done by him. If you look at those scribbled notes on the sides of the books that he had carried, you will realize that he was constantly thinking about the truths that were explored. That is the reason everybody reads Upanishad. Gurudeva read and crossed the river. We are still dry. So Svadhyaya means undertaking, reading of as many scriptures, shastras, comments, bhashya, vritti, panjika, whatever we can lay our hands on. But what is the purpose of doing all this? The commonest pitfall and the trap is to become a pandit out of these scriptures. Moment you think of becoming a pandit, your future is doomed. It is virtually not a walk at all on spiritual path if a panditya is kept as the priority. And mind well, from a personal experience, I can emphasize on the fact that many a times it gives a good feeling that I know more than others. If we come across this trap, then the whole Svadhyaya is focused on only one thing, to gain more and more of intellectual and verbal knowledge, so that somewhere at an appropriate occasion I can go and give not a pravachana, but it is called verbal diarrhea. The idea is basically to win the accolades, to get a pat on the back from the people that, oh, how learned you are, how intelligent you are. Add to that your achievements in your life, such as I have done this degree and that degree, and I'm speaking on this. And then there is something called introduction of the speaker, in which a lot of stuti sumana, the praise, stuti kasyamna priyat, the praise is showered upon you after you speak and before you speak. As a result, the ego bloats. And mind well, howsoever lenient you try to be, howsoever vinamra you want to be, we are not that great to have that vinamrata of Gurudeva's type, where these words of praise did not even touch him, because he was at an unassailable height. Problem with us is we do not have even the adhikar of becoming namra. Namrata itself requires an adhikar. We are flimsy people with flimsy mind. So anything anybody saying little better about yourself, the ego gets, it's like a coal, burning coal. When it gets wind, suddenly it starts shining, otherwise it's covered with the ash. Similarly, the ego is blown when the words of praise come, and it starts shining with the red, like a red hot coal. So similarly, a Svadhyaya is not at all meant for this. Tapovan Maharaj used to recite entire Bhagavad Gita every day by heart without fail for a number of years before he undertook the yatra for his final journey from Kerala. Never ever he mentioned to anyone that he was doing this. This came out only after, at the end of his life, when his biography was being written. What to talk of this? Even his own closest disciple Chinmayananda was not aware that Gurudeva, that is Tapovan Maharaj, is able to speak English. He came to know only when one foreign visitor happened to meet Tapovan Maharaj and he spoke in fluent English. That was a shock to Chinmayananda that, yes, my Guru speaks English. Sir, this is called a lack of ego. Can we do that? In a marriage ceremony, if nobody comes to greet you, our ego gets offended. So with such a fertile ego and futile existence, how is it that we are going to do Svadhyaya? The Svadhyaya should be done incognito. Incognito, do not tell others what you are studying. There is no need. Nobody asks you, you don't disclose. But there is an itch in the mind to tell the whole world that I am studying Bhagavad Gita. I want to know Krishna. I am studying Brahma Sutra. Why do you want to announce it? Is the study meant for announcing it to others? No. So Svadhyaya, the biggest fallout of Svadhyaya is, one, it may create the ego of panditya in you. And mind well, we are not at all pandit, because a real pandit is a different kind of a pandit. We are not even pandit, but we think we are. It's like a first standard student coming and dancing in front of a PhD student saying that I am also studying. It has no meaning. So do not do that. Svadhyaya, this is one fallout. The second fallout of Svadhyaya is it remains at theoretical level. Svadhyaya includes practical implication. What is a practical implementation of Svadhyaya? The practical implementation of Svadhyaya has to go through deep thinking and brooding. If you just do it by rote, like a parrot, if we just parade these shlokas, it will not be of any help. Yada yada hi dharmasya. Wait, stop there. What is dharma? Think, read, introspect, analyze, keep thinking. This is called mananam. Our problem and tragedy is we do not go beyond shravanam. In fact, we will be surprised to know what we hear or listen is not at all a shravan. In Vichara Sagar Rahasya, shravana, the anga shravana, angi shravana, and apatataha shravana, these are different types of shravana. Otherwise, how is it possible that Tattvamasi, if this is uttered by the Guru and heard by the Shishya, this is enough for getting the salvation or the mukti? Just by listening, how can you get mukti? Because that is a shravan which we have never done, which we even do not have any faint idea. So that is why these shravanas are also of different variety. What we do is a simple hearing by the ear for the words which are coming from somebody's mouth, or what we are reading, we are trying to put it in through our eyes. After putting in, if it just remains there, it will rot. The food that we eat, if nothing is done by the digestive system, it will be going out as it is. So what is need to be done? The digestive system has to act on the food so that it can be converted into energy. Similarly, the Svadhyaya or the reading has to be taken in and then has to be digested and assimilated in the form of saram, which is a vichara saram. The whole idea is the energy derived from the shravana or the reading is used for creating a sar or the energy which is supposed to be the backbone of the thinking or the thought. So the whole idea of Svadhyaya is change in thinking. If that effect is not happening, then that reading is basically a storyteller talking and the people listening to it. So that is why Svadhyaya involves reading of scriptures. Now, first thing that a yogi should do is, since it is said that nothing, reading, listening, seeing, all the panchendriyas are to be used for Svadhyaya, nothing other than the philosophy or the shastra should be studied, read, or seen at all. So a yogi, if at all he is serious about what he is doing, completely shun the storybooks, the fictions, the secular literature is out of the question. Your library, which normally we boast so that people can see how many books I am reading, if at all it is there, and if we are really sincere in reading, should not contain any book that relates to secular world, Vikram or Vetal. It has no role in our thinking, analytical mind. Your bookshelf should contain only the Bhashyam, Sutram, the Prasthanatrayi books, Gurudeva's books. There should be one complete shelf of all Gurudeva's books. Why? Because that is precisely what is required for Svadhyaya. Mind well, if you look at the life of Gurudeva or Vivekananda or Ramakrishna or Narayana Guru or anybody, they did not even utter a word out of this Prasthanatrayi. Vivekananda said, all my life I have spoken only Upanishads. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did not let people even bring the newspaper in the folded form whenever anybody came to meet him. Why? Do not talk secular. He used to get irritated when somebody is to talk secular. So if that is the case, then we should not be reading the books. Karma and the soul. The monk who sold Ferrari, mind well, they are not monk at all. Do not waste your time into that. 7 habits of influential people. Do not get into it. There is also an inclination to study Western philosophy. For the sake of study, it is fine. But mind well, more than 70% of Western philosophers were either mad or have gone into some debaucherous activities. Such people cannot, even though they are intelligent, even though they have given Jean-Paul Sartre, he was a Nobel Prize winner for a book called Being and Nothingness, one of the highest book in philosophy. But that philosophy alone cannot, perhaps it will give you intellectual creative pleasure. But our own saintly people, masters, have lived the life and written the scripture. So do not read a scripture of a person who is not realized. And we have enough of them. Bharat Varsha is the blessed land with many, many rishis. It would have been a problem if you were born in some other country, because then the question would be what to read. Because there is one Saint Francis of Assisi, and then next 400 years we don't see anybody. But in Bharat Varsha, even now, every decade you come across a great saintly figure, a Jivan Mukta. And what they do is they do right. Almost 90% of realized people have written something or the other. And those are all self-experiences of the highest truth that they have experienced by themselves, the anubhuti. So we should always read only that. So first rule of Svadhyaya is do not indulge in any other reading other than scriptures and the commentary about it. What happens because of that? Your mind is constantly basking in the thoughts which are higher thoughts. You may understand, you may not understand, you may partially understand. Mind well, Bhagavad Gita, the way it is understood by Gurudeva, cannot be the way we understand it. That is because Pratibha is not same at all the places. The quality and the expanse of the brain, of the intellect, need not be same. But the fact remains that if the mind is constantly basking in good thoughts, and what are good thoughts? All thoughts expressed in scriptures or shastras are good thoughts. Atma Chintana, as we call it. So every time the thoughts that we do, the reading that we do, and the brooding that we do should be about Atman or about Purusha. Now cross-check yourself. See what you're doing. What are we brooding for? Analyze a day, analyze an hour in our life. We will realize we are brooding for future. We are brooding for when to make the bungalow. We are brooding for how to make more money. We are brooding for how to take care of the daughter's marriage. We are brooding for how to really look after in the company your position. We are brooding for having little more money. We are brooding for having a good food. We are brooding for how do I look. We are brooding for buying new things. Sir, with this kind of material thoughts gathering in your mind, what is the wonder if the mind becomes materialistic? If you want to make the mind spiritual, it goes without saying that the mind should be surrounded and basking in spiritual thoughts. And remember, this mind is nothing else but the bundle of impressions called vasanas carried forward of many years. Howsoever you may try in the beginning, you will see that it slips. A mind which is elevated in the spiritual thoughts within no time, it slips and goes back to the addicted thought of ours. A thought of sex comes to the mind at a very wrong time, sometimes even in the temple. Let's admit it. When we talk about the sex and other dirty thoughts, in spirituality, we should be discussing everything openly. There is nothing indecent to talk about it. It's a bad thought, but we need to discuss about it. This thought of sex comes at a time, it came to Gandhiji, even when his father was dying, when his mother was dying. And he's admitted it. Let's admit, if it happens to us, first of all, you need to be honest to yourself, because it is a question of introspection. When you introspect, you should be putting yourself at the place where you are questioned. Question yourself. And that is why every time you try to do the Yama and Niyama, the mind will stretch you to the other end. It will force you to go to the other end. It will compel you to go to the other end. Why to talk of other people? The great archer and the warrior Arjuna told Sri Krishna that I will not be fighting. I will rather take sannyas than killing. And what did Sri Krishna say? Sri Krishna said, Arjuna, not you. Your blood will make you fight because you are a Kshatriya, because you have samskar of Kshatriya. That will force you, compel you to fight. Swami Vivekananda was told by Ramakrishna that he will teach, and Vivekananda said, no way, I don't want to teach at all. And the answer given by Ramakrishna was, your bones will teach, because you are a world teacher. This is how the vasanas of the samskars will compel you. And to break the cycle, vicious cycle of vasanas, one has to be stoic and solid at the effort that he is doing. Yes, the bad thoughts will come in the mind, but we have to one by one. Today I have 20 bad thoughts while thinking of spiritual thoughts. Tomorrow they will be 19. Do not expect it to go to 0. The people who get fed up with adhyatma are the people who start reading with a lot of enthusiasm. And after a few years, the enthusiasm went off because they feel nothing has come to them. They blame the whole thing and create a new philosophy, saying that there is no point in reading this adhyatma, etc. Lead the life you want. All you want is a healthy life, a happy life, and whatnot. Different types of philosophies come out of them. These are frustrated souls. All this happens because you have to remember, धीरे 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 रे मना, धीरे सब कुछ होय, माली सिंचे सौ घड़ा, ऋतु आए फल होय. Everything in adhyatma happens slowly and steadily. Your time span is of 24 hours and 60 minutes an hour. The span is quite wide in spirituality. When you look at the time span of spirituality, you look at many births. So if you have some bad points in you, don't be dejected. It is all because it will take maybe a few more births or maybe a birth more to remove. What is important is not how much you have crossed the road. What is important is, are you walking or not? And that is why be as much as in the thoughts of spiritual ideas through Svadhyaya. Next birth, when we are born, because we have done so much of study of Yoga Sutra and Patanjali Yoga Sutra, be assured, in the next birth, we shall be taking it to the higher level, perhaps in the same birth. We do not know. So there is nothing to feel dejected. So Svadhyaya has to be a complete mananam of what we have done, mananam to the extent of creating saram out of it. What is the importance of doing this mananam? Only when you do the mananam, the buddhi starts taking decision. Let us take example of you looking at a Ferrari in a showroom. Now, not that all people have enough money to buy Ferrari, but suppose You saw Ferrari, and then immediately the thought comes, good car, but I can't buy it, and you just go buy. But there is somebody who takes it to the heart that I need to own a Ferrari. What will he do? He will keep thinking about Ferrari. He will keep thinking about the resources. He will struggle very hard. He will pick up new jobs. He will do multiple jobs. He will borrow. He will steal. He will do a lot of things. Ultimately, maybe after some time, but he will have enough money and he will take that Ferrari in his hand. He will buy it and own it. Similarly, in Shastra, when you are brooding about a subject of God or devotion or anything, chitta shuddhi, suppose this is what we are thinking. If you constantly think about it, then your mind will be inclined to do something to obtain that. That is why Svadhyaya, when it is converted into mananam, then it leads to a buddhi nishchaya, and buddhi nishchaya means action. That is how practically things get implemented. What will you do? You will do that about which you are thinking most. See your own life any day. What are you doing? I am doing that which my buddhi told me to do amongst umpteen thoughts. Is it not that you get every day also a thought that I should go to India, it's been a long time. I have to go on a tour, it's been a long time. But those thoughts immediately are not implemented because they are distant thoughts. You don't brood on them. But I want to buy a new watch. Now you brood on that and you convert that into action and you buy a watch. That is the reason the way the mind works is give the mind the feed. Mind is a cow. It gives a type of the milk depending upon the food that is given or the feed that is given to that cow. So feed the cow called mind with all glorious spiritual thoughts. The gorasa that will come, the milk that will come would be definitely of a very high quality. Because after digesting and ruminating, but supposing that if only the food is taken and then thrown from the mouth, no gorasa will come. It has to be digested by the cow. Similarly, we have to take the thoughts of spiritual nature and brood on them, think on them, do mananam of it, so that a beautiful thought can come into the mind, and that is a thought of buddhi, which is a nishchayatmaka vritti. Vyavasayitmakata of the buddhi vritti will compel us to act in a better manner. Every single scriptural thought, properly thought, after doing mananam, when acted upon, pushes you 1 inch upwards in the higher realm of consciousness. That is the beauty of Svadhyaya. In Svadhyaya, what really means is we only have books in front of us. Svadhyaya is a very broad thing. And few of the things which are included in Svadhyaya, which we do not remember, is the pranava japa or the mantra japa. The definition of Svadhyaya given in Patanjali Yoga Sutra is Moksha Shastranam Adhyayanam Pranava Japova. What it means is Adhyayan of the Shastra and Japa is an important constituent of Svadhyaya. Now, this is something which is too neglected by most of the students, spiritual aspirants. We study everything. We take books and start reading. How many of us do mantra japa? Mantra japa is a special technique discovered and adopted by the rishis, because it is through the sound energy. Because ultimately mantra is utterance. Utterance is word. Word is sound. The sound uttered in a particular frequency has a power to uplift the frequency at which the mind is vibrating. The mind can vibrate at a lower consciousness level, where ahara nidra bhaya maithunam cha samana evam pashubhihi naranam. Either it can vibrate at that level, or it can start vibrating at a higher level. When we earnestly decide to help somebody and start bandaging the wound of a animal or a dog or a beggar, at that point of time we experience the elevation of the mind. That elevation has come because the higher frequencies start operating. Whenever spiritual thoughts come, the frequency at which the mind, because ultimately mind is what? Spandanam, pranavayu. The pranavayu vibrates at a higher level. The spandanam, tad ejati, tannejati, Ishavasyopanishad. It vibrates, it doesn't vibrate. Tad dure, tad dantike. So Ishavasyopanishad tells us it is the vibration. The whole world is nothing else but vibration. Vibration of what? Energy. The prana and the rai. The concept of prana and rai, powerfully elucidated in Upanishads. Many Upanishads we will see prana and rai, matter and energy. So this matter is nothing else but the energy in compact form. So that is why it is possible to vibrate that energy. Doing an action means putting the energy into some vibration. Now it can be put into lower vibration, as I said, or it could be at a higher vibration. Putting the matter or the rai into higher vibration with the help of pranavayu happens when the mantra japa takes place. It is a deep and esoteric science. A lot can be said about it. In fact, we know nothing about mantra. Mantra, if studied properly, mantra is, because there is something called tantra and there is something called mantra and there is something called yantra. Now, these are not the subject of today's discussion, but out of this, each of them require elaborate explanation which can go in few hours. Mantra especially has been studied to a great extent, both by the modern neuroscience as well as by the ancient rishis and munis. So the pranava japa, pranava is the highest of the mantra. There are focused mantras called localized mantras, and there is a universal mantra. Gayatri mantra, pranava japa, these are universal mantra. So if we do Omkar japa for a long time, it produces vibrations. Mind being a vibrating thing, some amount of consonance takes place, and a resonating mind or a mind resonating with Omkara automatically gets lifted from the lower consciousness to the higher consciousness. What scriptures can do after brooding in the mind, a mantra can do much more quickly. A mantra can be for the Ishta Devata, which is a localized mantra. And mind well, for the mantra, you require specific vibrations through specific pronunciations. The pronunciations that we do are not the pronunciations that are taken from anywhere. These are all called matrukas. Pronunciations come from where? Of these mantras. These are called bija mantra. Bija mantra is the seed of vibration. When the sound is given a shape of the word, the first instance when the sound gets converted into the word, those words are called matras. They are the mother of future words. What I am speaking now is a speech. It is not a mantra, but Om Ganganapataye Namaha. The Gang you will not find anywhere in the dictionary. Om, Glom, Rim. These words you will not find anywhere in dictionary. From where these words have come? These words have come from Matruka. Where do you see them? They are seen, not only heard, they are seen by the rishis in the higher conscious state. That is called Unmani Avastha. Imagine somebody who is flying at a very high altitude. He's far away from the earth. As he comes down, he gets the first glimpse of the earth through the clouds. Similarly, a rishi or a muni who is contemplating and is in deep meditation, he is into the realm where he is not at all aware of his body and his mind, because that samadhi is beyond transgressing the mind, transcending the mind. Now, when he's coming back from samadhi, when he's descending down, the first territory that he touches is the mind. And when he comes into the mind, try to imagine the first instance when he's coming from unknown territory to the known territory of Laukika Vishwa, that is the present world. While coming down, the experience of the joy of Advaita or the Purusha or the Atma Darshanam that he has had, when he is coming down, he is still basking in the bliss of that Atmananda. So that is why when he is coming down, his first thought is to express that bliss and Ananda. While expressing that, he uses words for the first time. That means the thought emanates first because he is in a thoughtless condition. From there, he comes into the thought avastha. When the first thought comes while descending from the unmani avastha to the normal avastha or the jagrut avastha, from the turiya avastha, he first remembers the bliss experience and tries to express it. That thought then takes the expression of a word. Those words are completely different words. Those are the first words ever spoken when the word emanates. That is why they are called bijakshara. And this bijakshara then becomes the mantra. So it is not something concocted from the words that we speak. If there is so much of Ganapati's mantras and sutras and different narrations are there, why Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha is called Bija Mantra? From where the word or the word itself called Om came, we don't see it, we don't use it also anywhere. From where this Om, this particular activity or everything came, because that is the first emanation of the sound converted into the word when somebody is descending from that unknown territory of higher consciousness called Atmanandam or Brahmaswarupa. From there, when you are coming into what is called as Apara Vishwa, that is the Sandhikala. At the Sandhikala, you get these matrukas or the and mind well, they are not spoken, they are extempore word. By inspiration, it comes to their mouths. They are still basking in that bliss. That is why these are the utterances made by the rishis. Different rishis as different time. That is why the Gayatri mantra, the pranava, tasya vachaka pranavaha. We have seen in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Patanjali Maharaj says, tasya ishwarasya vachaka pranavaha. How? Because from the Ishwara, from his darbar, from his court, when you are coming down, the first thing that you say is pranava. So pranava directly depicts the Lord, the Almighty. So what you do is you have to do mantra japa as a part of Svadhyaya. Sit down in a relaxed manner, have no thoughts as far as possible, and focus your mind on the mantra that you are doing. Do not get into the complex mantras. Do not get into the complex Sanskrita, even if you don't know that. Om. This is one word, easy to learn. There's nothing to learn in it. But when you utter it, you should have the whole mind focused on it. You can visualize the Omkara in front of you and then start pronouncing it as if there's nobody existing in this world except you and the Omkara. Let all the mind be focused on Omkara. Let all Indriyas be shut off from the outside. And let only the Omkara be seen by you. That illuminating Omkara on the background of the black, dark, bluish shadow that you see when you close your eyes. Focus on the center of it. Usually the focus goes at the Bhrumadhra. It is natural phenomena. And then watch that Omkara there and get your sound aligned to that Omkara as Om. The whole mind is now focused on one word. Mind well, it is not a simple word. It is mantra. Mantra means mananatrayate. The ability to rescue you from this world is in that one single word. That is why prakarshena nayati iti pranavaha. It has a power to take you across. That is pranava. Gayatri mantra is so powerful that it can create the energy of sun inside you. So it is not only Bhargo devasya dhimahi. When you utter that mantra, you have to have your kalpana shakti at its peak, presuming and feeling that the sun is pouring the light in your mind. The whole mind is getting illuminated. When such kind of svadhyaya is done, you have done one niyama of the other niyamas. They are all complementary to each other. Remember, svadhyaya helps Ishwara pranidhana. Santosha is helped by svadhyaya. Santosha helps svadhyaya. A dukhi mind, a sorrowful mind cannot do svadhyaya. So continuously maintain your santosha. Think about the life. We have spent about 40, 50, 60 years. There was nothing that we had planned. And still we were regretting at every moment, I should have done this, I should have done that. Difficulties, everybody suffered from pain or difficulties in life. They came and they went. Happiness came and happiness went. And still we are thinking about a situation where there will be only happiness and no sorrow. It will never come, sir. You cannot be the intelligent person in this world. The most intelligent in this world, called Lord Buddha, has already mentioned that this world is full of sorrow. Then what is the point in you researching it and trying to reinvent it? Better to follow Mahajano yena gataha sapantaha. If the world is full of sorrow, if the world is a pot full of dirt, why do you want to put your hand into it? Whatever comes your way, sheerly out of your prarabdha, keep watching it with aloofness. If your interest is in the school, then rest of the activities are mundane. Similarly, whatever happens in your life, irrespective of you are a CEO or you are a peon, it doesn't matter, because that is a part of your prarabdha. All your focus should be on Ashtanga Yoga, practicing the Yama and Niyama throughout the day by making the mind constantly alert. After 5:30 to 6:30 lecture, Patanjali Maharaj goes very much back into the back end and the world comes on the forefront. That way Ashtanga Yoga won't be possible. A constant thinking by an alert mind, the mind that is dedicated to sattvic activity, the mind that again and again feels like reading scriptures. Mind well, reading scripture is an habit which is of sattva guna nature. If you do not have sattva guna, it will be extremely boring to read the books of the scriptures. More difficult the scriptures such as Brahma Sutra and other bhashyas, it will be further difficult for us. That is because the Rajoguna and Tamoguna is on a higher side. So inculcate Sattva Guna through yamas. If you practice Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya, Aparigraha and Brahmacharya, naturally the Sattva Guna increases. That in turn helps in following the niyamas. And in the niyamas, the Svadhyaya is there. So the one who is able to do Svadhyaya is one who has inculcated Sattva Guna in him. That is why one has to have what is called a determination of the mind. Gurudev has very clearly said that I have a strong mind, you don't. That means we have to increase the strength of the mind. To increase the strength of the mind, we have to constantly work against the mind of the present type. The mind tells you to leave it. You have to tell him not to leave it. The mind tells you that, it is better to sleep now. You have to tell him, no, I'm going to study, you better study. Mind well, the mind is under your influence. Unfortunately, we are under the mind's influence. Anybody who is under mind's influence is a weak-minded person. And a weak-minded person, W-E-A-K, is W-E-E-K minded person also, because one who studies for half an hour in a week also remains weak, W-E-A-K. The reason being, a constant practice of subjugating the mind has not been done by him. And the whole idea in Yoga Shastra is to sharpen the mind and make it subservient to the owner, which is nothing else but we ourselves. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevaya Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
We'll wait for some questions.
Hari Om. Namaste. Sri Buddha was saying that the world is full of sorrows, whereas our rishis in Sanatana Dharma used to say the world is full of ananda. So that makes a lot of difference, isn't it?
No, it doesn't make any difference. The world is full of bliss and ananda for the person who has reached a particular stage. All our rishis basking in bliss. So in their turyavastha, there is nothing called sukham and dukkham. Absence of sukham, both is ananda. Remember, ananda doesn't have any opposite word, because ananda is by itself an avastha. Our avastha is of sukham and dukkham. That is why Buddha did not say that world is not full of ananda. He said world is full of sorrow. And we saw already in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, in the earlier Yoga Sutra, we saw that how happiness or sukham is also dukkham. We saw in detail what are the reasons for sukham is also dukkham. So from the point of view of everyone, all the rishis and munis, the mundane Laukika Vishwa is full of sorrow only. Even the Swarga Prapti Ichha also lead to sorrow, because after some time the station expires. So our rishis, what they are saying is, this world is full of bliss. You just come to that stage. I will give you a small Sufi couplet to understand. What he says is that you try to taste the nectar of Lord, and then you everything is full of bliss. Ishq ka jarf azma to jara, tu nazar se nazar mila to jara, dil ko taski na ho to main jamin, tu maikade mein aa to jara. The Sufi says, come to this side where the Lord resides, and then the world will be full of anandam. Buddha was describing the world of we all people. He said full of sorrow. Rishis and munis are describing the world from their standpoint of turyavastha, when everything, why? Sarvatram ekatam anupashyati. When everywhere there is Atman, how there can be any dukkham there? It will be all bliss only. But for where? A 10th standard person can say that there is nothing left, there's nothing in first standard. It's all very easy because he's in 10th standard. But a first standard person will say, it is so difficult. I don't know what is going to happen when I reach 10th standard. Standpoints, sir. where you are. Evolution of consciousness, where you are. Lower the consciousness, higher is the impact of this world, the essence of which is the form of sukham and dukkham. As you go higher, the sukham and dukkham start losing the relevance. Why do you think that most of the rishis and munis have suffered a lot? Ramakrishna suffered from cancer, everything. Dukkham was not there. Why? Because he was not in this world. This world has sukham and dukkham. That world has anandam only, because Sat, Chit and Ananda is the swarupa at that world. If at all you say there is anything existing in that world, if at all, because nothing can be said of that world, neti neti. But still, if you want to compare for our understanding, then it is Sat, Chit and Anandam. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Hari Om, Dr. Sanjay ji. When we say about a niyama and kriya yoga, so in niyama we have like shauch and santosh. So with the, when it is like maybe removed or whatever, so with the chitta shuddhi, then we are reaching to kriya yoga. Is that correct thing? Or?
Because those who have mastered the first few niyamas, the shauch, the santosha, the tapam, etc., they are now already graduates. They can get into the postgraduate level. That is why they are called madhyama adhikari. So if somebody is born as a madhyama adhikari, he can start with kriya yoga. He can start with post-graduation. If somebody is born with post-graduation, they are uttam adhikari. He can directly get into sadhana, that is samadhi. And those of us like us who have not graduated at all, they have to start from first standard. Then it is ashta anga yoga. For kriya yoga, it is a traya anga yoga. And what about those who are already postgraduates? Direct samadhi yoga. Their problem starts at vitarka samadhi. They directly come and start like Gurudeva. For him, meditation came like this moment he reached Himalayas. How? Or Swami Vivekananda, born Nitya Siddha. As Ramakrishna himself said, 9/10 of his mind is already absorbed in Lord. How did it happen? Not by overnight. And overnight in Shastra is called over one birth. So many nights have gone, many births have gone. That is why it is better to assess ourselves where we are. That's why I never call anybody as highly intelligent, lowly intelligent. No, sir, everybody is in a progress. Everybody is in different standard. Do not have any bad attitude towards the inferior one, and do not have high attitude about yourself. Remember one thing, it's all a journey. Everybody is in different standard. That is why a kriya yogi is the one who has already mastered the yamas and the niyamas. He has already done the mahavrata, and then he has gone further. We have done very loose anuvrata. That is the reason why this birth, we do not go and slap somebody or kill somebody. There are terrorists who do that. They have not even done anuvrata. So they are completely into himsa. Our himsa is limited to vaicharika himsa. So we are a shade better because we have gone into the second standard. Yet himsa is not mastered, ahimsa. As we start mastering ahimsa, etc., when you are born with so much of practice, supposing you are a postgraduate and you go for further studies, you will immediately understand the further book. Similarly, the one who is born with as a madhyam adhikari, he is born with all these yama and niyama, so that he directly goes for what is called as Svadhyaya, Tapa and Ishwara Pranidhana. He focuses only on that. You look at all the disciples of Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, etc., you will realize that he was born here, he did his education, did then, and suddenly he joined Ramakrishna mission and he came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and started doing austerities, tapa. Those are called Uttama Adhikaris, going for the final thing. Some of the Shishyas which came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he directly recognized them. For example, Swami Abhedananda, moment he came, what did Ramakrishna say? Oh, you are a yogi of past birth. This is your last birth. So this is how it happens. Hari Om.